Therapists, worried about your clients getting irritation or allergies and it being your fault? Then this is for you. So the aim with this masterclass is to really define what irritation is versus allergy, what are the differences, and then the second part is work out if you have done a treatment on someone or sold someone a product and that has happened, how you deal with it to be professionally the best version and get them a good result, and make sure that nothing untoward happens or comes from the experience. This is our Irritation and Allergy Masterclass. Okay, so first up then, one of the bonuses of both Pink's Boutique and Proverb is because of how they're formulated, touch wood, it's something we get very little problem with, but never say never. People can react or have an allergic reaction to lots of different options. You may have a friend that can die from eating a nut. So just because something's organic, it can still happen. Plus, obviously, lots of you have got lots of products in the building. So this really isn't about Pink's Boutique and Proverb, this is just about all brands and all skin. Let's go with actually defining the differences then, because this is the first thing to be able to help. The word irritation, reaction, contact dermatitis, allergic reaction, all get like put in a washing machine and spun around together as if they're the same thing, and they are not. So let's take irritation first. Irritation, think of it as a surface reaction. So it's normally quite acute, it's normally immediate, it's normally, and we're thinking about this from a skincare world, it's normally you put a product on someone that their skin does not want, it irritates it and it reacts quite quickly. And that output, that reaction, is normally itching, you can get slight change in the surface of the skin, like it can go drier. So it's normally the very obvious common itching, redness, that is irritation and can be referred to as contact dermatitis as well. And the last thing, just before we go to allergy, is it often happens on the first exposure. So skin goes, no thanks, not having you. That would be something that we could see in the middle of a treatment. Like I've done facials before where I've just started to see someone starting that process, like their skin doesn't like the product. So you could be aware that it could happen during a treatment and you can start to see it. It is normally a very simple process of dealing with it, which is remove whatever has caused it and put cold water on. And I suppose the way you want to think about irritations is they normally happen quite rapidly, but equivalently you can calm them down quite rapidly as well. Quite different to an allergic reaction. Okay, so an allergic reaction. The best way to think about these two differently is the allergy world. Think of it as being more internal, whereas we said the other one was more like external. I know they both show externally, but think of it as a full body reaction. And there's a timing thing to consider, is that you don't normally get an immediate allergy. So normally it will take at least 24 to 72 hours for an allergy to show itself. So it's not going to happen on a bed, it's going to happen after they leave. Okay. What does an allergy reaction need? It needs an antigen. So an antigen is any substance that provokes a reaction from your body's immune system. So this is why it's different. So in our world, when we're just thinking about skin, our skin immune cells, our T lymphocytes, would come into contact with the antigen, and that antigen would provoke a full immune body response. Now, that response can also be reddening and itching, but it normally goes further. So you're normally more likely to get hives or welts with it as well, and it doesn't have to stay localized. So if I put something on them here that has caused that allergic reaction, it may well be that their eyes start watering, that their nose is itching. Severe allergic reactions will lead to things like vomiting or trouble breathing. So they can also move to different parts of your body. So ways to think about them is the timing is different. They actually think that the first time you come into contact with an antigen that provokes a response in your body, it actually takes more like 10 to 14 days to respond. But the next time you meet the same antigen, your body will be quicker and in that 24 to 72 hour element. So timing is different, texture of the skin's different. You normally find if it's just an irritant, if it's an irritant contact dermatitis, then the skin will become drier, scalier, itchier, whereas an allergy skin can often get more like welts, can go wetter, I suppose, in some ways. And then the last thing is placement. In irritation, it normally happens where the irritant was placed. In an allergy, it can spread to other parts of you. So that is our absolute definitions of them. What we now need to know is if it happens in our businesses, what do we do? Okay, so how do we deal with that customer? Number one thing is just to always stay really calm and put on your teacher education head. And you need to ask them lots of questions, because the more they feel you're doing for the process and are involved in the process, the calmer it makes them as well. So everything you ask, also write down. Make sure they see you writing it down as well. So we want to know what happened, what was the timing, what is the reaction looking like, how is it feeling? Have they had that before? Do they know if they're allergic to any ingredients? Which ideally they should have told us in our consultation. I would also gently ask, and I say gently, I'll always say, is there anything in this time period, anything else new? Any new foods that you've eaten, any new washing powders, any new makeups? You should ask those questions, because what you're trying to do is get them to think broader, because it may well be something else. Just be aware that sometimes people look at you and think you're trying to pass this blame somewhere else. So just be really nice and say, we just always look at the bigger picture, because skin is an unbelievably complicated animal, which is why I love working with it, and it's why it's kept me entertained for so long. But we just need to look at all of it. Make sure everything gets written down. Tell them that they need to stop using whatever the product was that they were exposed to, and lots of cold water. Now, we're not doctors, so we can't prescribe how to fix it, so we're not allowed technically to tell them to take antihistamines or what to do. So your job should be to say, I would go and speak to the pharmacist, or I'd go and speak to a doctor. I know some therapists who would, if it's mild, who would just say, I can't tell you what to do. I know when I've done it, I've taken antihistamine, but that isn't me telling you what to do. Because you have to be really careful, obviously, as soon as it becomes medical. The other thing I would always suggest, from a kind of legality point of view, have a little bit of Americanism about you, in that the UK isn't quite like some areas of the world where everyone's trying to sue everyone, but make sure that in all of this conversation, that at no point do you actually say or agree with them that that bottle or that treatment has actually caused the problem. Because as soon as you have admitted that in some way, then it does put them in a different position to take that further potentially. But also, the main reason not to say it is you can't truthfully know at that point. So I would be super kind and fully involved in the conversation, but I will never be saying, oh my God, I'm sorry it did that to you. Because I don't know that it definitely did it to them. Okay, what we then need to get them. I would say the most important thing we need to make sure as well, and I have used this sentence on people and it really works, I would say to them, what we need to make sure is that we arm you for the future to try and find out if there is a certain ingredient, what it is, so you know to avoid it for the future. People love that. It's like you're helping them for the future plan. So say they'd had a facial, they went away and the reaction happened later. So you'd say, okay, so I can get all of the ingredient inky lists of all of the bottles that we used on you, and we can see if there's anything that is common, or if they've just bought one moisturiser, we can get them the inky list for that. So I always get people full ingredient lists, because that's another helpful thing that you have done. And if they were willing to, you could also say that that you could fill them up like a tiny little mini pot with like a dash of each product. So if this were a treatment and we don't know which one of the bottles might have caused it, so that they could literally patch test a small area and see if they can find out to try and narrow down what is happening. It's much simpler and easier to do if it's just one bottle. It's when it's a treatment that it's harder. But again, that ability to give someone a little product to go patch test just becomes a very other helpful function that you're doing. Stay super calm, stay super zen, and really what you have to always know, and I can remember the first time a clinical formulator told me this. He was like super head of boots for many, many years. And he said, when you make a bottle, when you formulate a bottle, it has to be formulated for the herd, for the majority. There will always be slight outliers. You will always get a sheep that runs off in that direction. And that is just the way of formulation and skincare bottles. What you need to work out is if you're using any products in your building where there seems to be a lot of sheep running out of the herd, because then that actually might be that there's something not great about that bottle. But if it's the odd person and you're working day in, day out for years and it's the odd person, then they're just not staying in the herd. I hope that helped put you in a position where you can help your clients and you can understand a little bit more about irritant versus allergy, so that we will try and use the same right phrases and try and get our clients to understand the right phrases as well.